It is 7:05 on April 15th. This is the Selectboard meeting in the town of Lee. And the first order of business is I have to read this. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, I'm hereby informing all attendees that a video and audio recording is being made of this meeting. So if you prefer not to be videoed or audioed, now would be the time to leave. So welcome to the meeting. Our first order of business is to review and take action on the open session minutes of April 1st, 2025. And what's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, I move we accept the minutes of April 1st, 2025.
Second.
All right, with no comments, then I would ask, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that is unanimous. We have a motion and a second. All right, next order of business is we have public comment. We have no one here in the hall, but we have others who may wish to speak. Yep, Kathy Hall, you got your hand up. Why don't you go ahead and speak, Kathy?
Thank you.
Sure.
Kathy Hall. First of all, I'd like to just tell you about spring break at the Lee Library. On Tuesday, the 22nd at 10:30, there's balloon twisting. On Wednesday, the 23rd at 11 o'clock, there's sensational stories. On Thursday at 1 o'clock, there's art workshop. On Friday, the 25th at 1 o'clock, there's chain reactions. And on Saturday, reptile party at 11 o'clock. And to register, you can go online. You can email capital L.NAZAROV@cwmars.org. Or you can call the library at 243-0385. So that's the Lee Library. Now, for the Lee Youth Commission, the Commission's spring pool party for residents of Lee will be at Berkshire South Regional Community Center, 15 Crissy Road, Great Barrington, on Tuesday, April 22nd, from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Pre-registration is required, and families can sign up at lee.ma.us/youth-commission. And finally, the Neighborhood Ninja Fit Playground fundraiser dinner party is Saturday, April 26th from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Greenock Country Club in Lee. Tickets are $65 per person, and reservations can be made at, all capital letters, givebutter.com/ninjafitdinner. More activities are planned for May: volleyball, kickball, bocce ball, and teen art classes, to name a few. Keep posted. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Does anyone else under the public comment session have anything to say? If not, we're going to move forward with our rest of our agenda. The next agenda item is for Berkshire Regional Planning Corporation to discuss some air quality project, and this is Brittany. You online? I think I see you. So
I am. Thank you.
great. So tell us what's going on. I read all your literature, but why don't you inform everybody of what's happening?
Great. Thank you so much. I'm Brittany Daniels of Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. I'm involved in data analysis and overall planning for this newly formed air quality monitoring project BRPC is trying to launch. BRPC was awarded an EPA grant to do a regional scale air monitoring program. The reason for that need is because there are only 2 regulatory monitors in all of the Berkshires. One is in North Adams by Massamoka, and one is in Pittsfield at Silver Lake. And if you have ever driven in the Berkshires from north to south on a rainy or snowy day, you will quickly see that our microclimates change. And this is also very true of our air quality. So this project is aimed to capture localized data on what is our air doing and how can we better improve for the residents. So our methodology so far is based on 3 guiding principles. 1, does the municipality have an environmental justice community? 2, any urbanized or transportation corridors? And 3, any industries located within the municipality? We did pull these from the National Emissions Inventory. So these industries are allowed to discharge pollutants based under the Clean Air Act. For Lee, one good example is Onk's paper mill. But there are several throughout the counties, and when you look at them clustered together, you start to, and then combine that with vehicle emissions and other areas of concern, that this project has a definite need. So we identified Lee as one of the project areas based on those 3 categories, and tonight I'm here to discuss the sites that we have identified and to present that to the select board to see if that is something that the town would be interested in moving forward with. These sites are mainly going to be indoor and outdoor, so we're doing a combination. And we are going to be focusing on collecting data on particulate matter. For those who don't know what particulate matter is, if you're not an air quality expert yet, these are really, really small particles that happen when there's combustion. So it can be from vehicle exhaust, gas stoves, burning. If you burn toast in your house, for example, you'll have particulate matter. That's a very big concern because in the Berkshires, when we look at the emissions inventory, particulate matter is one of the highest things that our county has by tons. And so we're exposed to quite a bit. And whenever we talk about air quality, it tends to be flagged because these are really, really small particles and they can penetrate through personal protection equipment and they can settle very deep in the lungs. So whenever an area kind of looks at air quality, particulate matter always gets flagged because it's one of the biggest things that we can kind of control and prevent and that people really have a hard time safeguarding themselves from. In addition to particulate matter, we do plan to install 3 what we call high-grade sensors. They're a little bit more expensive, so we're only going to do 3. But these will also allow us to capture nitrogen oxide, which is a very distinct pollutant generated from vehicle emissions. And so we'll have those all along the north and south transportation corridor to kind of see how our traffic patterns influence air quality in neighborhoods. So I did send along a list of the sites that we have identified that would be a good fit. These are all municipal owned except for the one with the public housing on Hyde Street. And I think at this time, maybe I'll pause for any questions that you have because that was kind of a lot of information at once, so I apologize.
That's fine. You gentlemen want to ask some questions first? I have my own.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
Brittany, thanks for being here. Bob Jones. We've had some air testing done, and we're probably going to have some done in the future should the rest of the river agreement come to fruition. Will this air testing will it pick up airborne PCBs, that sort of thing as well, or is it just basically for the particulate matter?
Yeah, this is just going to be particulate matter. There's going to be 2 site particles that we're looking to test. One is called 2.5. If you simply Google that, you'll see it is the most well-documented, well-researched health adverse effect when we talk about air quality. And again, like I said, it comes from so many different sources, both from the home and industry. And we're also measuring particulate matter, or what I like to say PM, it's a lot easier to say, PM10, which is just a slightly larger particle size, and this also comes a lot from industry and vehicle emission. The project scope is based on low-cost sensors, and I say that in a way not just because they are in the range of air testing much more affordable, they're non-regulatory. So they're designed to support community science, citizen science approach, and they won't be used to enforce any regulation. The PCB question comes up quite a bit because of the impact that has had on the county. But those particular sensors that measure PCB, airborne PCBs, are in a whole different ballpark, much more complicated, much more sophisticated. We're talking 10,000 more dollars than our project could ever support. So no, we won't be doing any PCB testing.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Sean?
I'm just wondering if you could go into a little bit more detail about what actions we could take. You know, if you're testing further, finds more particulate, higher tonnage of particulate matter in the air, what can be done about that? You know, I think we had a peaker plant that was decommissioned recently that should help our air quality, right, in town.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a couple others, I think, too.
The Woodland Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, which changed to battery, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good start, is something that could happen, but maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, we do. Well, I guess the first part that comes to mind is that we do have two peaker plants, not within our state. They're just right over the border of New York, but the way that our prevailing winds, they do bring a lot of outside air pollutants, and that's the thing about air quality, right? They don't really care about political boundaries. The other part is the project scope is designed to run for a full year, and so what we're really doing is looking and analyzing trends both seasonally, so that could be traffic patterns, peaker plants clicking on and off, you know, wildfire smoke coming in. And we have vetted this program through 3 different rounds with our regional Board of Health collaboration. They've actually helped kind of devise this project scope. And so if there's any spikes, what we'll do is analyze the data to make sure if there's any anomalies, because, you know, sometimes it could be a false reading. But then we'll be in communication with boards of health to act on that public notice.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Sean? Okay. Well, first, thank you very much. I noticed this is an EPA grant. Do you actually have the money in your pocket yet?
Yes, we've been allowed to draw down. We did have a temporary funding freeze at the start of the year.
Okay.
For just about 2 weeks. We did have it confirmed with our project officer that this particular funding from whatever source it came from, deep within the EPA, is allowed to move forward. So we did have a temporary pause, but we did get confirmation about 3 weeks ago that we're allowed to continue to resume activities and continue to draw down.
Okay, thank
So
you.
at this time, we do not anticipate any other funding disruptions.
Okay. Thank you. So when I'm looking at your locations here on your last sheet, I notice you have 4 indoor locations, 2 outdoor locations. What's the size of this testing unit? How will it be installed? And then how do you collect the data from it?
Sure. Yeah, unfortunately, BRPC is subject, as a local government, we are subject to procurement, and we're right in that process to procure the equipment. So I do not have a selected vendor yet, so we'll be putting that out to bid. But these typical sensors, when we're talking about the low cost category and that they measure maybe 1 or 2 analytes, they will probably be as small as the biggest coffee mug you probably have in your house and as large as an iPad. So I don't have the specifics. I apologize, just because we haven't selected that vendor just yet.
Okay.
They need to be installed at breathing levels, so 3 feet to 6 feet. So if you think about where a short person or child might be to where a tall person.
Right.
They're, depending on the equipment, most of the time they're tend to install with like a simple bracket, 1 or 2 screws mounted. The outdoor ones will be solar powered to try to allow for as much continuous data collecting. We will have cloud-based, so we're putting contingencies that we will not have access to Wi-Fi, that we will not always have access to power sources, especially for the outdoor ones. And the vendor we select will need to have an interactive, public-facing dashboard, which is a very common feature because we do want to get people to understand how to look at air quality and to be participating in this data collection.
So for the most part, you're saying the data collection will be sort of a Wi-Fi thing. It'll generate itself and send a message to someone who's going to, or collect to some source that's going to collect all this data. So you say you do need a Wi-Fi. You do need a Wi-Fi connection, internet connection.
It will be through the cloud because we were very clear that, especially for outdoor locations, they may not be Wi-Fi. I mean, I can't even have a phone call through
Yeah.
a couple of towns without dropping a call. So, we were very clear that, the cellular connection sometimes can be disruptive. So now, not Wi-Fi, but it'll be cellular based, and
Okay.
it'll be transmitted through a cloud service.
Okay, all right.
So it's like a SIM card in it then, that they can get the data from.
Yes, well, the SIM card will be the backup. So in case that
Okay.
if there is some sort of cellular disruption, like the satellite just kind of misconfigures, we can then retrieve that data through a SIM card.
Okay,
And these are relatively small units, they're not like refrigerator size.
yeah,
things.
No.
small,
No.
yeah, okay.
So they won't need a tripod stand or anything. They're small enough to be well mounted. Again, what I've seen that would fit our project scope and our budget is as large as the coffee mug and
Yeah.
in an iPad. There's
Yeah.
just a size range just to kind of get your head around.
No, that's good.
Any other questions? Then I would ask, in looking at your document you sent us, so it looks like you're looking for us to vote to approve to participate in this and to allow you to place these sensors in the 6 locations that you have listed. Is that correct? Would that be a correct statement?
And I would just like to add, if we could have municipal support through helping with installation, and what I like to say is whoever has the big ladder. So if there's anybody on the ground that, building and maintenance facilities manager that could just help participate and just installing these for one time, and then that would be for the year.
I thought we didn't need a big ladder because you weren't going higher than 6 feet.
Hey, well, I'm very short,
Okay, all right, no problem.
including putting my dishes away.
Okay, so you're looking for a vote to participate and allow you to install these sensors and possibly assist in the installation of these.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
all right, I just want to make sure that whatever we do here is what you're going to need to go forward. So if you don't have any other questions, how would you like to go forward?
I just have one other question.
Sure, please do.
Do we have the authority to at Hyde Place? Because I think most of these places are town-owned. That's the one that comes to mind that isn't,
I
right?
think Brittany mentioned
Yeah.
that too, so we don't have authority over Hyde
Okay.
Place. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, originally this was
But
gonna go.
they can ask and we
They had
can
asked
support,
about the
yeah.
Araldi building
Right,
area,
well.
but that's why it moved to Hyde, so.
I got you.
That would be Berkshire Housing, or, I'm sorry, Hearth.
Yeah.
Yeah. that
Well,
would-
we can vote to recommend to do this, and then we can send them a letter to suggest they participate. Yeah, we could do that afterwards. So,
Yeah, and I apologize, Mr. Chairman, for interrupting.
No,
And,
that's fine.
Just to kind of clarify, we wanted to do municipal locations, mostly for the support, to control any variables. I have a gas stove and cats, and if they run by and I turn on the gas stove, my air quality is like, all my alarms go off. This would allow us to have as clean of a data set as possible that we could get. Additionally, we wanted to choose indoor for public facing because we wanted to get a sense of, what is the public experience, especially if we hear recommendations about wildfire smoke. I think is a great example. Go inside and close your doors and windows. It's like, well, is that enough? So we're really looking to kind of capture as much as indoor and outdoor air quality testing that we can control. And the public housing spaces are, I think, as close to residential as we can get without being like my house, where I know I have a lot of variables that would trigger, an incomplete data set. Just to kind of clarify, like why we're including public housing as well.
okay, all right, thank you. Anything else, Sean?
No, Mr. Chair, I'd move that we endorse the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission's air quality project and to assist in installing the testing units, I think, and to petition Hyde Place to locate one of their units in the facility.
Okay, do we have a second for that?
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it is a vote unanimously, so we'll get you something soon, how's that?
That sounds
Look at you.
great, and
Okay.
I will coordinate with Chris Britton when we get our procurement and we actually have equipment in hand, and we'll just stay connected that way.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Sounds
Let me know
great.
And we'll get we'll arrange for some help to get those installed, so.
Okay,
Great.
thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, next on the agenda, we actually have two things kind of going together, but I see Nicole, you're online. We're down to the one-day entertainment application for the Enchanted Altar. We have in front of us a request for one-day entertainment. I can't believe you've been there 6 months, if that's what this is telling me.
Yes.
So April 26th, Saturday, April 26th, from noon until 4. Looks like you're going to have, well, why don't you explain I know what's written here. I'll turn it over to you, Nicole. Why don't you go ahead and let everybody know what you're up to?
We're having a 6-month anniversary party. So we're celebrating surviving our first Berkshire winter and thanking the community for their love and support during our first 6 months here.
Okay. Well, thank you. And the dance performances is what also I was getting to. You're having two 20-minute dance performances? That's what the entertainment
Yes, I'm
license
still
is for?
working with her.
Yep.
Unfortunately, her dog is very sick, so we're playing it by ear. But we want
Sure.
to get everything set up, just if she's able to do it. And I am talking with a congregational church as well about the 2 parking spots.
Okay. Very good. So the two 20-minute periods will be somewhere between noon and 4 if things work out for you.
Correct.
Okay, excellent. All right.
Everything else that's taking place is either in the building or on the porch, so it's
Okay.
on the property.
Sure, very good. All right, so let's do this one first. We have an entertainment license, and what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, I move we grant the entertainment license to Enchanted Altar for said date and time.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a second. All right, any other last-minute questions? All right, for this particular entertainment license, I would call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it is unanimous, so we will get you a copy of the signed-off entertainment license. So don't leave yet. So the next thing we have is your sign permit request. You have requested a sandwich board, which, thank you very much if you're the one who did this, by adding the zoning chapter. Maybe that came from you. Okay, very good, thank you.
No, that's not me.
That's okay, no. Well, it's very, very helpful when we're reviewing this to see what our zoning bylaws, because this question came up last week, like, what are we allowed to do for these temporary signs and sign permits? But, in the pictures that you sent us, thank you very much, and in your dimensional requirements, you actually do meet the requirements of the sandwich board signs, and we are allowed to give you a permit for up to 1 year for in accordance with our temporary permit signs, looks like. And so, you gentlemen had a chance to take a look at this?
Yeah.
Okay. So, anything else you want to tell us about this? The sandwich sign is basically 25 inches wide, around 45 inches high, and that's the outer side, not necessarily your printing is actually smaller than that. Looks well done. So anything else you want to tell us about it? Where will you be setting these things?
Well, technically, since the building is on both Park Street and
Yep.
Park Place,
Okay.
I was curious if I could put it on the corner so I could have maximum exposure.
I would assume according to the bylaw, you'd be able to do that. Looks like you can, as long as you're not infringing on the walkway in any way. You know, people can
Correct.
still get by. As long as you can do that, I'd say you can put it there.
Okay.
It looks like not a
Wonderful.
problem.
Thank you.
Okay. So what would you guys like to do? What's your pleasure here?
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we approve the temporary sign permit for the Enchanted Altar.
Okay.
Do we have to set a time frame? That's my
Well,
only-
it actually
Not to
gives us.
exceed 1 year? or is
Yeah,
that-
why not?
I would make
It
that
wouldn't hurt.
motion, not to
Okay.
exceed 1 year.
Okay. All right.
You'll have to come back in a year if you want to do it again.
Okay, that's the plan.
Okay. And do I have a second for that?
I will second it.
You will, okay. Any other questions before I call for a vote? Seeing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye, so that is unanimous, so you should be all set.
Okay, and
Okay, Nicole.
I was just waiting till after this meeting to submit my check, so I'll do that by the
Okay.
end of this week.
That's fine. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right, good
Have a
enough,
night.
yep, thank you, you also. Okay, we have another temporary sign permit for a sandwich sign. That's our next order of business, and do we have anybody online who wishes to talk about this? I see no one there and no one's here. Okay, I do have a question about this, though, because
This one falls outside.
it falls outside the correct dimensions.
Right.
So I'm not sure that we would be able to approve this. They want to be 36 inches wide, 48 inches. They're outside the width sign, so the sign is actually too large. So,
I interject really quick? So he came in the office and was filling this out with me.
Yep.
And when I asked what the dimensions were, he's like, and he Googled what typical sandwich board dimensions
Yeah.
were.
That's what
So
he
I think
means.
he'd be okay changing it to what the bylaw does allow, because in the moment he didn't technically know what.
okay, so it's not like he has this made up and he's
Right.
just waiting, okay. So then perhaps someone could make a motion to approve for 1 year a temporary sandwich board sign not to exceed 27 inches wide or 40 inches high, 48 inches high. That would meet the dimensional standards in our bylaw.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I move that we grant the permit to the station, to grant the permit for a sign not more than 27 inches wide and not more than 48 inches high, so it complies with the zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Excuse me. All right, no other comments or questions? Location-wise, he says it's gonna be right in front of the restaurant, so it doesn't look like he's on any kind of sidewalk or anything. That's what he says here. So I guess with that in mind, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so Sabrina, if you don't mind getting back to him about that?
Yeah.
And then once he adjusts this, then I can sign off on it.
You got it.
Okay, thank you very much for your help. Okay, we are down to business item 3E, approval of the other post-employment benefits policy, funding policy. You want to explain what this is? I know we've been dealing with this forever.
Yeah, I mean, so we have an OPEB trust fund.
Right.
We're not required by law to have a fully funded OPEB trust, but it does help, in bond ratings, things like that. And right now, our goal will eventually, our initial goal will be to be able to fund 2 years of these retiree benefits. Right now, we're doing it all pay-as-you-go.
Right.
So every year, we're appropriating money for it. Right now, we are funded about 0.85 years in our trust fund.
Sure.
So we're about a little over, I think it's 3.5%, just over 3.5% of what we would need to be fully funded so that we wouldn't have to do a pay-as-you-go on those
Sure.
benefits. So this is pretty much what we're doing. It's just putting it in writing as a policy, but essentially, we would fund roughly $40 to $60,000 a year based on two factors. One, 0.3% of the annual gross wages, which currently that would amount to $46,000 a year. We put this in as part of our benefits budget.
But we hold the money. I mean, it just goes into an account that just,
Yeah, it goes
That
into
we
a trust fund that's
Right.
maintained through, it's invested on the legal list of investments that we're allowed to use. And then the second tier, if we had in excess of $2 million of free cash, we could put an additional 5% in.
okay.
This is not something that we're gonna fund probably in any of our lifetimes, but by
Yeah.
continually
Right.
adding it, at some point, future generations will have a fully funded retirement program that we don't have to pay as you go
Yeah.
every year in the budget. And again, it's a good financial practice, but it only comes into play essentially if the town of Lee were to
Go out of business. Right.
But it does save us money, again, as you're investing, you're earning money in there, and then, it could come to a point where, we're not budgeting so much every year to pay for these. It is difficult for towns like Lee, because we have our own school district.
Yeah.
There are towns that are in regional districts, it's a much lower number that they need to reach, because they're not paying for teachers' retirement as well. Where towns like Lee, Lennox, so forth, we're paying that directly from the town. So it's a big goal to reach.
Right.
We need to eventually get to, I think it's $22 million to be fully funded, so.
I thought at one time the legislature actually required everything to be fully funded within 5 years or something, then I think that went south in a hurry.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that they just didn't realize how unrealistic it was for towns to be able to do that.
Yeah, we would essentially have to have our OPEB liability is 22 million.
Yeah, right.
So, a long ways to go on that. But this policy is good to have. It is good to have when we do go out for bond ratings, that sort of thing, and it kind of just puts it in writing what we plan to do.
It seems like it shows the bonding people that we have a plan, and we have a plan in writing, and so I think that's good fiscal policy. So we should have a vote to accept this policy for the other post-employment benefits. I don't know, I have to keep saying it.
Yeah.
This OPEB thing, I don't even want to say that word.
I'll move
Anyway.
that we accept the OPEB funding policy as
Okay.
written.
All right, do we have a second?
I will second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any other questions for Chris or anyone else? Anybody online have a question? And there's, nope, okay. Then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good, thank you. All right, our next order of business, we have a gas permit, it looks like, for 25 David Street. David or Davis? Which is it? David,
actually-
David.
David Ave.
Oh, okay, I was
is-
gonna say, it's,
It's gonna get confusing
yes, it is
later.
David Ave,
It's
yes.
another permit for Davis, but we'll get there.
Okay, so David Ave is what
Is
we've
on-
got here,
yeah,
even though it's written
we
David
don't have a
Street.
David Street, we have a
Right.
David Ave,
Okay,
so.
well, that makes sense.
And a
'cause
Davis.
And then we have a Davis
Yes, right.
Street.
Okay, because we do have a David ad on the drawing that we've
Yes.
received. All right, we see it, they are not going, they're in the public way, but they are not looking like they're entering the actual roadway. By the looks of this, they're in the edge of the roadway, but within our public right-of-way.
That was
So-
a stipulation from Lenny because the
Yes.
road hadn't been paid for over 5 years.
Right, gotcha. Okay. So, what's your pleasure, gentlemen? What would you like to do with this?
Mr. Chair, I move we grant the permit to Berkshire Gas Company for 25 David Ave.
Okay,
Second.
all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, excellent, thank you. We're on to item 3G, which we are going to skip over for now. We had a purchase and sale that isn't quite ready yet, so we'll bypass that for the moment. And we're on to review of the annual town meeting warrant, and which we will review. There's a couple of adjustments. We're going to have, I think that the best bet is we can review it somewhat tonight, but I think that for the final version, we're going to meet next Tuesday, the 22nd at 4 o'clock, and we'll be in the selectman's office to do that, I assume,
Yep.
and to do the final vote so that we can get this posted. But in general, Chris, you want to run through it, and
Sure.
while we all follow along? Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. So we continue to do the first 5 articles as a consent agenda. These typically pass with unanimous votes. Our town reports, fixing salaries, elected officials, transferring the cemetery proceeds to the perpetual care, the grant application, and the Chapter 90 money. So again, usually just kind of housekeeping things. If the board have any questions about those? Or-
No,
Okay.
no, I think so.
So
We've been
on
doing
our-
that for years.
On our budget, Article 6 is the omnibus FY '26 general fund operating budget. We're looking at just under, a little under a 6% increase. Tax impact will be closer to 4 to 4.5%, when we factor in new growth and also some other money that we'll be applying towards the tax rate. But a total budget minus enterprise accounts of $24,296,068.22.
Can I preempt a couple of questions?
Sure, yeah.
That's going to come from the people in town?
Yeah.
If you go back to the first page, actually, it's the page 3, at the top where we have conservation, planning, zoning, all at zeros. Somebody's going to ask, why are those at zeros? Because
Yep.
we have all those, so where's the money really?
Yeah, so I was actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. Couple things on here, so those have all been combined into the land use department.
Okay.
So, conservation, planning board, and zoning board, will all work off of one budget, with, our town planner and a land use assistant.
So that's all going to line item 170?
So that's 170, yeah,
Okay.
170.
Yep, very good.
We'll have all of those, and all of those boards have been, well, the planning board and the conservation commission, we've met with both of them to explain. There'll be some benefits in that, we'll have some redundancy, we'll have 2 people. Right now, we have 2 people, but one of them is gonna be retiring part-time. When we added a planner, we got rid of the land use assistant, temporarily, and so that will be another like 35-hour position that will serve
Okay.
all 3 boards, and as well as do conservation agent work, so. But that shared budget just allows flexibility between, things like anything from training to posting and advertising.
Sure.
Of, there's some flexibility when one board might need a little more, another might need a little less one year, et
Okay.
cetera.
Thank you. Then on that same page, down in public safety, police, fire, building, I get all this, but then emergency management spelled out separately, 2,250, which I don't have a problem with it, but what is that for? Why is that like not incorporated in either police or fire? Why is it zipped out separately from that?
Yeah, that's a separate stipend
Okay.
that goes to, so Chief Brown gets the stipend for emergency management director.
Okay.
And Chief DeSantis is assistant emergency management
Okay,
director.
that's fine.
And that's what those are.
So that has to come out of that other line item
Right.
budget. Okay, very good, thank you. And then street lighting, 424. Is this reflecting savings from all the stuff we've done, including aggregation and everything, and our Main
Yeah.
Street lights were gonna be special lights that's gonna save us all kinds of money? So I think it is down from other years, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just wanna,
It is
point that
definitely
out.
down, and it does reflect the LED lights.
great,
It does not, yeah, I'm trying to, it does not affect, the aggregation does not affect this because
Okay.
we had already a separate
Oh, that's right.
contract, so, yeah.
Okay, but it does reflect, this is all the new heads we put in all through town.
Right, yes, all
It
the
seemed to
new
me we used to
overhead.
pay more, quite a bit more than
Yeah, it
this.
was close to 100,000
Yeah,
before,
I thought, so that's some pretty substantial savings, but that's what it looked like to me. And then, on the next page for Tri-Town Board of Health, only $765, looks like a deal, the Board of Health. But the Tri-Town numbers,
Yes.
Lee, Lennox, Stockbridge, they're all grouped here, but is that because we get money back from Lennox and Stockbridge, or we're gonna,
Yeah.
how is this working? Are they our employees, are they Stockbridge's employees?
So they're housed in Stockbridge or Lee employees.
Okay,
and
great,
so
that's why it's here.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we have to appropriate the full amount.
Gotcha.
Starting last year, just for transparency, we separated it out.
Yeah.
Even though we have to appropriate the full, I don't know, it's the 600 and some thousand, we're just showing, Lee only pays 211,000,
Right.
597. We're gonna appropriate the whole amount, and then Lennox will pay us back
Right.
277,
And
and
Stockbridge, gotcha.
Stockbridge will pay us back 154.
And when do we get that, is that an upfront in July?
I believe, don't quote me on it, but I believe it's billed quarterly to
Okay,
them.
all right,
Yeah, and then we take that back on our recap sheet as reoccurring income. So
Very
we're gonna appropriate it, but it won't really counting it, the only the 211 is what the taxes will see.
Well, I'm sure somebody's gonna ask. And then down, debt service looks really good.
Yes, and that's because we're paying the
Yeah.
debt out of free cash, so.
Because right now, it looks like our long-term debt is zero. And
So-
say with our long-term debt, well, one's with the P, one's with the I. What's that difference there?
Principal and interest.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we separate those out on the sheet?
Yeah, so we've actually, the reason why we do have debt, we're just
I understand.
not paying it in the operating budget right now.
Okay.
We have enough, the debt that we're paying on the public safety building this year is a little over $500,000. We have more than enough yearly interest in our stabilization to cover that, so we don't have to hit the tax rate with it.
Okay.
So next year, on the other hand,
Yeah,
maybe a
it's gonna
different
be better.
story. We're likely to have to tax some, raise and appropriate some, and do some out of stabilization.
Right,
But
right.
this year,
Okay.
we don't, so.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but those are my questions that I thought people were
No,
gonna
absolutely.
ask about, and maybe we can preempt some of the questions. All right, thank you. Article 7.
All right. So capital budget on here, we went pretty light on the capital this year. We've put a lot into capital the last few years. And while we don't normally like to do this, we did put some of the free cash that would normally go to capital against the tax rate. And the main reason for that was for the huge increase in employee benefits this year with
Yeah.
the cost of health insurance, and we'll have to ramp that back down. But with the public safety bond coming on
Right.
in FY '27, we didn't want two big hits in a row to taxes. So we did forego, and I did want to mention just a little bit on the budget. That does include right now in education cuts of 2 elementary teachers to get to this number. We have temporary reduction in force in police, fire, and DPW to get to that number as well. So, and 700,000 that's coming out of free cash to offset the tax rate. So, number of things going into that. So our capital is only 633,000. Typically, it's been a little more than that. We have about just under 40,000 in IT upgrades. Voting machines are due to be replaced.
Yeah.
Police body cameras. We have 335,000 going to the school for OPM for which is going to eventually need to have a new roof and
Yeah.
paving.
Do they have any stabilization funds at their disposal for things like that in the future, or do you know? Or
Well, by doing this OPM work, the pre-bidding, you're
Gotcha.
going to be eligible for state
Okay.
state facilities money,
Gotcha.
which could cover as much as 50-60% of the work.
Good.
But- So this is to get all that, and this is the work.
No, they definitely
This
need
is all the pre-bidding
they need
work.
a new roof, yeah.
It's not the roof for 335.
Yeah, no, yeah.
This is how much it costs to find out
Yeah,
how
to
much is
get,
off.
to get it ready.
So-
do you know if that's is it both roofs? Probably.
Yes,
They were
yeah,
built at the
both
same
roofs,
time.
because they were both done around the
Same
same time. They're getting close to that 25-year mark when
Right.
when SBA says we can pay for a new roof, help you
Yeah.
pay for a new roof, so.
The fleet refurbish. Is
Yeah.
that just buying a new truck? I mean, is that the
It's not
fancy words?
actually, yeah, no, it's not.
Okay.
And so this is actually preventative maintenance on a bunch of our trucks,
Okay.
having the frame
Wow.
sandblasted and
Repainted.
repainted and undercoated.
Okay.
Replacing some plow parts, things like that.
Okay.
And there's one on here that's we've never had before, but we do have a capital request for Tri-Town. All 3 towns are contributing to it, and when they moved to Stockbridge, we did have some money for that moving to take place. We were asking for an extra 5,000. All of the records were digitized rather than bringing 90 years of records
Right, I
down to
see that.
Stockbridge Town
Yeah,
Hall, so
yeah, good.
that was one extra part. 8 and 9 are the enterprise funds for water and wastewater. And that does include some debt service in there.
Okay.
Article 10 is non-departmental. These are the typical payments that we've made every year for the last few years, including some short-term debt that's on there. Article 11 is a CPA appropriations. The CPA
Community Preservation
Yeah,
Committee,
correct, yeah.
just so everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, Community Preservation Committee went through a two-part application process. They did letters of interest, and then they had actual applications submitted, and they did interviews for each applicant. The list below shows the projects that they're recommending to town meeting this year. The biggest of which is a land purchase on Pleasant Street, which is done in coordination with Mass Wildlife for a canoe takeout. But yes, there'll be $273,250 in appropriations, and they will hold $126,000 in reserve, and then obviously get more money next year as well from the surcharge. As I mentioned, the bond payment for public safety for this year is on Article 12 as a 2/3 vote from stabilization. We have roughly close to 1.2 million in interest just over the last 12 months. So that will be less than half of the interest on that account. Article 13, we're still waiting to see if that will be there, but that's a demolition delay from the Historical Commission. Article 14 is a general bylaw to allow tax title payment plans. We've always done this, but some new laws that were passed by the Commonwealth require us to put this in our bylaws now. So it's really not changing anything, we're just complying with.
Codifying it and putting it in our corporate bylaw.
So when somebody is behind on taxes, it allows us to enter into a payment plan with them rather than not getting anything from them. So,
Okay.
Article 15 is a grant, to accept a grant from the Massachusetts Clean Water Revolving Fund. It totals $180,000 for the wastewater department. The town will need to contribute $21,000 of that in cash. And there is $50,000 in kind and the rest from the state, so.
Good.
Article 16 is a zoning amendment for the definition of an accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah.
And then 17 actually amends the accessory dwelling unit bylaw.
Is the planning board planning on, are they still doing a hearing on that?
Yes.
This
Coming
hearing
up.
is the 28th,
28th.
I think.
Yeah.
The other hearing was yesterday for the STRs,
Short
which
term.
is
Right.
Article 18. And
So they're still gonna hold a public hearing, this may change a little, may or may not
At
change
that
based
point-
on that hearing,
Yeah.
but,
they would have to amend it on the
On the
floor of
floor,
town meeting
right.
though,
Yeah,
And then-
because we're gonna post.
and then the short-term rental, they just had the hearing last night, right?
Last night, yep. The other one's posted for the 28th. And then this is a dual warrant, so we are also posting for the May 12th, town election.
Okay. And do we, but we can do that next week. That's not too late. I mean, we can
Right,
do
we're
a
still 2
posting for
weeks
that.
out, yeah.
We're still good. Okay, I just want to make sure we don't run afoul of something. All right. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So back to our agenda. Thanks for that review. There's no action needed for today. Memorial Day Parade announcement. We are going to have a Memorial Day Parade. And you'll be hearing more about it. It will be on Monday, May 26th. Seems like a long way away, but it is not a long way away. At 10 in the morning, they're still looking for participants who may want to participate in the parade. So if you're interested or you know people who are interested, please let them get hold of us here at town. There's, is this flyer, is this going to be on our website so they know to get to you, Sabrina?
It's up there.
Okay, great. Well, I thought I saw it, and I just want to make sure I got it right. And it's let's honor our soldiers together. on 10 o'clock on May 26th. So we'll be talking about it again at our next meeting, I'm sure. All right, next, the Smithsonian exhibit announcement, volunteers needed. Would you like to speak to that for a second? Do you know what this is? Is this on our website also? Okay, so we have, we're looking for volunteers. The Smithsonian, and that is the Smithsonian, is going around the country doing different things, and there's a museum on Main Street, it's called Voices and Votes, Democracy in America. It says the town of Lee is excited to host the Smithsonian's Museum on Main Street exhibit, Voices and Votes, Democracy in America. They will be at the Lee Premium Outlets from June 7th through July 19th. And they're asking for enthusiastic volunteers to assist as exhibit attendants. If you can get hold of us here, again, through our town, you can call Sabrina, our clerical staff, Sabrina, or email. When will this go on so people can contact, have your email address and all that? I mean, it's not till June, so.
Yeah, I will probably post it next
Well,
week.
why don't we put
Say
some,
early May, yeah.
can we put some flyers in the library and on our town hall
Yeah,
entry and,
I've got all that printed, I just
oh,
need to
great,
get it around.
super. All right, great.
We're gonna do a farmer's market table as well.
Oh, that's great. No, that's perfect. Thank you.
And there's also, organizations that can
Yes.
help out as well, that some
Well,
have
we get to the
already-
chamber and those
some
kind
have
of
already
organizations.
expressed interest
Great.
in bringing people to help out. And, I just want to mention, Sabrina did a great job in
Yep.
organizing this and applying for the grant.
That's super.
To get this, so thank you, Sabrina. And we
Yep.
were one of 6 towns in the Commonwealth that will
Wow,
have this.
that have
so-
this.
Right.
Is there a way to preview, like, have they gone out other years? Is there a way to preview what's coming to town for anybody who might be interested in volunteering?
If you want to go to Florida.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But actually, no, I'm saying it'll be,
Mohawk
it's a.
Regional High School first. So
Mohawk?
it's coming from Mohawk
Okay,
Regional School
great.
to us.
So somebody could go up and take a look at it
Yeah.
at Mohawk.
It's on its way
Regional.
from Florida to Mohawk now, right? Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. No, I'd love to know more about it, so I'll be paying attention. All right, thank you. Well, that basically brings us to any topic the chairman could not reasonably anticipate.
There's one
Kinder
utility.
Morgan.
Oh, where's that one?
Yeah,
It's not on
in
there,
number
but,
4. If you go to 4, this one should be in
Oh,
your
well, I
packet.
did not see that. Okay, I didn't go
Came
to
in
4,
late.
because that's usually
Came in late.
somebody else. Okay, Kinder Morgan. All right, what have we got here? What is it? Oh, a utility cut. Okay. Let's take a look at this. Sorry, I missed
This is
this.
for- Yeah, this is for 55 Davis Street.
Okay, that's why we were being confused earlier. Okay, because there it is, 55 Davis Street. We don't have a picture. Are they going to be in the road? It doesn't say, we don't have the backside of this. They have a different form.
I think
Because
they-
usually
I
we
think
have
they-
police sign,
well, I
there's
think
police,
they
okay, I see
are
the detail.
Going to cut into the road.
Okay, because this, Craig signed off, it says no detail required at this time. They must not be far into the
I
road.
guess, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, it would be nice if
this
they
time,
gave us
he
better
says so.
information. Okay, well, Craig signed off on it, they don't need an officer, I'm assuming they're not gonna intrude much into the paved area at least. So what's your pleasure?
And this is the gas pipe, the natural
Yeah.
gas
Right.
pipeline.
Yeah, the big one, the
Yeah.
big one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I'll be out of town that day.
Yeah.
It's too close to my house. In case something blows. Anyway, so what would you like to do with this?
Mr. Chair, I move we grant the permit for the curb cut to Kinder Morgan at 55 Davis Street.
Utility cut,
Utility
right?
cut.
Yeah. Second.
Okay. Excuse me. I was trying to fight that off and it wouldn't go. Sorry, I apologize. All right, so we have a motion and a second on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. I don't know where they got this form, because this usually only the chair signs, and now we got all 3 signatures, so we ought to take a look at this and see what's happening. And usually we have a picture or something on the back.
I
Yeah.
think
Anyway.
it's Berkshire Gas that has their own separate one.
Great, okay.
This is the utility cut application.
Oh, okay, and it's, okay, gotcha. And not the, okay, not the usual one we see, because it's so different.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
very good, thank you very much. So, anything else from you two, because I have one other thing I want to bring up under topics the chairman could not reasonably anticipate?
No,
Okay,
I mean, Chris is gonna speak to the public safety.
yes.
But I was just kind of wondering a little bit more about, I don't know, you guys were half there today, about the value engineer, the value editing or engineering or whatever you say for the project.
Well, if
Just
we
a
can-
little bit more. on
Sure.
that, But I think Chris is gonna speak.
He's gonna bring it up, public safety, so we'll bring it up under that item in number 5. But under other things we couldn't reasonably anticipate, I know that I had spoken with the town administrator about getting this on the warrant for this week, and I was too late for that. So at our next regular meeting, not the special one next week, the regular meeting, I am going to ask that Aruna come back in and speak with us. Because it appears that with all the money we've allowed them to use to put in their air filtration system, they are no longer using it, and it's stunk like hell the last 2 days. So I'm gonna ask them to come back in and sit with us and explain why they used all this money to put it in, and then they're not using it. And they're just sending all the smells back out the way they always did. So I would like to have that on the agenda for next time, and definitely, if Harsh is even still there, because I guess they've gotten rid of a few people, changed around some employees, so if we could reach out to them, I would like them here to explain what they're doing with this system that we helped them pay for and why they're not still using it.
Yeah, a notice did go out to them for the
Thank you.
next meeting.
Thank you very much. So that will be on the agenda. All right, well, that was the only other thing I had to announce, that I want to make sure that they're here and they explain what they're doing. So we're on to item number 5, a town administrator report. So it's all yours. Chris?
All right, so the first thing, and it's in your packets tonight, but just to let you know, the municipal aggregation
Yep.
process is finished. Out of 2,888 electricity users, I guess we'd say, 2,799 are enrolled, so 98% of all
Great.
residents have enrolled in the program. Some of them were just, there's, as you can see on the list, there's actually 55 of those that actually opted out of it. And then there was, for other reasons, there was a few that may have had some third-party energy supplier they couldn't get out of. A couple, 11 that the mail was returned, but then we had 69 others that actually came in and enrolled outside of, on their own afterwards. So bottom line is, we have 98% of users in that program. And you should see Lee Municipal Aggregation or something to that effect on the April billing. It should have shown up in March, but through some technical difficulties, the March billing that you received from Eversource did not show that, but
Right.
it is indeed being done. It will show up on the April billing. In addition to that, because of that, there'll be a little credit that everyone
Yes,
will
that's what I
get
thought.
as well on the April billing.
For the back charge in
I
March.
do want to make sure, though, that everyone knows that it is still an Eversource bill. They're still doing the supply. I had a few
Right.
questions about that, thinking that the town was going to bill or whatever. We're not. Eversource still bills, but it should show as your supply, not your delivery. But Eversource will do delivery. Supply, it will be something like Lee Muni Ag, something like that for Lee Municipal Aggregation. But it is in effect, and those are the numbers. So very successful enrollment in that. As for the public safety building, demolition started today, as you all know. We had a nice ceremony this morning. We expect that demolition to continue for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then there'll be some additional geotechnical work done. And then we're currently pre-qualifying general GC bids. So we have vendors pre-qualifying for that. Those should be coming out. Available for bid May through June, to have a GC in place shortly after that.
Right.
And I know Sean mentioned some of the VEs. We did look at, the committee met tonight, that Gordon and I were at. We were looking at some potential savings that we could do. We did run into a little more site work than anticipated. And we had to leave before, for this meeting before that.
Yeah,
So I don't know if Gordon had any other, I didn't get a chance to get all of it, but we are looking at a few things, including,
I can give you an
yeah,
update
go
on that
for it,
before you
yeah.
go, before you go too deep into the
All right,
weeds.
sounds good.
I actually saw Chief Brown on my way in, and he basically said there's a few things that, on the potential ad alternates, I'll start with that they're still putting the police carports as an ad alternate, but the other two that were the apparatus bay change and the additional story, they're just taking those out as even ad alternates. They're
Oh,
just-
okay.
They're just gonna be gone.
So the ad
So we're gonna
alternates,
stay with the 5 bays that were originally presented and not consider taking one away.
Gotcha.
nice. The ad alternates are things that if there's money in the budget,
We can do
they
it.
can do them.
Right.
Right.
So, and you have to go in order.
Right.
So that, that was why there was an A, B, and a C, and
So
right
you
now.
can't just jump to C.
Right, yeah, if you want to you have to prioritize up front. Other than that, there are many of the other things that were changed, but we can go more into depth in that later. I don't want to misspeak, because it happened really fast walking in here as he's trying to
Yeah.
point to what was done, but there is some potential reductions and the bid documents will reflect what they did today, and we can have those minutes available later
Yeah.
for the public to see on what happened and how the votes went.
Nothing that's gonna change the look of it or the
No,
floor plan
not at
or
all.
anything like
No,
that.
that's all stayed the
It's all-
same.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct,
Are
that's all
those
stayed the same.
actual carports? Because on the plan it shows it's being open.
Yes, it's basically a top with supports and whatnot, that kind of thing. And again, there
hopefully
was.
solar on the roof of.
Right, they were gonna do that, and that may be something that we'll do eventually. But at this point, there are other alternatives to use, other than to have that to keep, because one of the reasons to have the carport was also to keep the vehicles under cover in snow and bad weather. So at this moment in time, they're working with the fire department, police department are working together, and on the short term, they may be able to stage the police vehicles in actually a fire department bay, so that they're inside, they don't need to leave them running, they won't have to, they don't have to worry about sweeping the snow off of them, or in inclement weather, they can just get in and go. So that's good. I mean, that was and if there is enough money after the bids come in, we can always accept the carport outside and go forward with that, and we can wait and see. There was one other thing they had to vote on, but I don't know the answer to that, so we'll wait and report it. It was about
good.
who to use for all the communications and whatnot. So a single vendor instead of open to anybody. So I don't know what happened with that. That's the only update I have on that, Chris. Anything else, sir?
Just a reminder to everyone, May 8th town meeting.
Yep.
This will be we will have the meeting on the 22nd, just for the purpose of signing
And May
the warrant.
6th, we're going to meet Tuesday the 6th.
Oh, that's
2
right.
days before.
Yes, 2 days before,
But
yes.
you just got to keep talking about it.
May
We need
8th,
people.
7 o'clock, high school
Yeah.
auditorium.
Yep.
And the election is the following Monday on the 12th.
That's the 12th.
at Crossway.
Okay. So that it?
That is it.
All right, so then I will say this, we have a special select board meeting, which everyone's invited to if you wish to come, on April 22nd to do a final review of our annual town meeting warrant. And probably about the only thing on that meeting, but there could be something that comes up as a surprise in the meantime. So I'm not saying, it will be posted in public spaces like always and on our website. If you'd like to come, it will be in the Selectman's office, though, at 4 PM on April 22nd. And then our next regular meeting will be on May 6th, 2025, right here in this room at 7 o'clock. And with that, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned.